I recently played Dragon Quest Treasures for the first time, but while watching the game unfold in front of me, I constantly had this nagging question: what am I contributing? The combat saw me doing significantly less damage than my monsters. The exploration made me stop experimenting with my lineup once I realized that I didn't need their abilities to get around, and even the story seemed to process itself for me. Today my quest is to answer this by trying to figure out whether you really need any of these fancy buttons, or whether walking around and pressing A to interact is all it takes for Dragon Quest Treasures to complete itself. Join me as we take a very leisurely stroll through the ruins of this underperformer, and maybe along the way find out more about what exactly is wrong with it. The specific rules are that I'm not allowed to jump, roll, heal, attack, use the map and catapult, issue orders, use forts, the fortune finder or dragon attacks, and I'll even ban resetting the camera and crouching. In other words, all actions, so inputs that make your character or a party member independently do something, are banned. That means I'm allowed to press A to interact with objects and NPCs, move the character as well as the camera using the sticks, and I'm allowed to open and navigate the menu. You could technically ban camera movement as well, but the only practical difference would be making this video unwatchable. But let's start from the beginning. This game is a pseudo prequel to Dragon Quest XI, starring the child versions of Eric and Mia. As such, it opens on the two of them still in Erdrea and stuck on a Viking ship. Being kids, they sneak out. Luckily, the Vikings are too drunk to care, and they free their soon-to-be magical animal companions from captivity before getting chased onto a lifeboat by the most eloquent of Vikings.
Let them out!
The section not only set the stage story-wise, it notably serves as a tutorial for some inputs we likely never use again. It forces us to crouch, then shoot 3 pellets to free the animals. It's a rough start to this sort of playthrough, and this isn't the end of it because the children dock on an island with a puzzle-filled shrine that they need to solve by working together. From this first puzzle you'd assume that puzzles that involve switching between characters would be a part of this game, but sorry to disappoint, there's 0 potentially gameplay relevant character switching from this point onward. But to solve this section we do switch from Eric to Mia and have to crouch once to get past a gate, and we have to jump once up onto a button, meaning we've already been forced to take 6 whole actions before ever picking up the daggers at the end of the shrine and getting sucked, or if you're not Eric, valiantly jumping into a new world. Now, we might have arrived in a brand new world, but we haven't quite escaped the tutorial cage. For now we play as Mia while she's searching for her brother, and she's portrayed as 100 times more capable than him. And the first thing we have to do is help a slime find its treasure. You're meant to use the fortune finder, an ability that lets you see a treasure's location distorted in some way through the eyes of a monster in your party. Nothing stops you from finding the treasure without though. You simply need to stumble across it, which is easy enough thanks to your monsters giving you an indication when you get close. The exact spots where story relevant treasure as well as the spots where randomized treasures can spawn are also fixed, meaning that more often than not you'll know where treasure is located based on what spot looks most suspicious. Right outside we meet the crew of a side character called Silverbones, but much more importantly, my personal role model, the supreme swashbuckler, the peerless privateer, Admiral Moxworth. And look at that animation, how cool is that? That's how you know he's important, because right after his first appearance he's already joining Smash. We have to find some treasure for one of his crewmates, same deal as before, but then we are allowed to explore farther and get into the combat tutorial that teaches you one thing and one thing only. You don't do combat in this game. You're not a fighter, you're a child. After a bit of time passes and you pathetically fail to kill a single Draki, the game, or more specifically the magical animal companion that you can now understand thanks to the dagger, takes pity on and lets the slime you helped earlier fight for you. Monsters, your party members in this game, follow you around and can't be controlled, but they automatically fight enemies that are attacking you like they're your personal bodyguards. You can probably conclude that if I ever need to defeat an enemy, I have to do my best impression of that one annoying kid on YouTube. For now we finish up introductions, the animal companion also joins Smash, only makes sense since it's going to be around for the entire game. And then we again meet up with Admiral Moxworth and one of his slimes. They join us temporarily and this leads us right to the last tutorial. A singular cliff that we have to get on via a fort. These are monster special abilities that come in a few different forms, none of which are relevant for this playthrough. But we have to use this one and it's the 7th but also last forced action for the tutorial section. A bit of a bummer, but what I want you to pay attention to is the way I got up next to the cliff. This game has very generous automatic climbing when you run into a wall, and even without jumping you can scale a fair bit of vertical distance just by running into things at the right angle. Up there we also happen to find our first bric-a-brac, which are treasure substitutes and normally a meaningless mechanic. Normal treasure takes the radar or at least some looking around since it's not immediately visible. Bric-a-brac on the other hand is just out in the open. The downside is that it's worthless, as in you literally don't pick it up on normal playthroughs since it's not worth the time it takes to pick up. Later on I'll get a bit of use out of them, but not because of their own merit. For now, to progress, we hop onto a skylift that takes us up to a short dungeon with a boss at the end of it. That might sound like our first challenge, but we do have Admiral Moxworth in our party and he's borderline invincible, so we breeze on by. And while we're successful in finding Eric and his cat, the treasure that we as the players personally deeply care about has been stolen from us. By which I mean someone took it before we arrived, and that someone is Captain Silverbones. So after we get an introduction to Eric's talking cat, we also get 3 new entries to the new Smash game, which is completely overwhelming back to back, and despite what the intros imply, these guys, they are not important, they each only appear one more time. Before making the exit though, Captain Silverbones says that Moxworth used up all his lives and is dead to him, which animates Moxworth into jumping after the ship, down a cliff and to his death. He's not coming back. Regardless, the kids go towards the nearest ledge and look down, hopeful that maybe there's a chance Moxworth might still be out there, but they realize that the island they're on is made up of 2 fossilized dragons floating above the clouds, meaning even had he not used up his previous lives, 9 wouldn't have been enough to survive this fall. Moxworth, the first sentient being that helped you on your journey, made a conscious decision to jump to his death in front of everyone's eyes because of what Silverbones said. Never forget. Now, thoroughly traumatized, the kids get on a train and travel to their soon-to-be base to avenge the death of their dearest friend and also to help their animal companions find the 7 Dragon Stones, which is the reason they've conscripted the kids in the first place. But before they leave, they get interrupted by one more, by a very important NPC. The princess/scholar who not only joins Smash, but they spin her into frame, followed by her Hades Corner companion saying that she's important. We'll be interacting with her a total of 2 more times. Now the game can start for real though, and you might think this is an awful start to a run. Before ever getting to the hub area, I've already had 7 actions forced on me, but while this intro might not have left me with any choice but to press those buttons, I do have one choice the game can't take away from me. I can still choose to not count the section all the tutorial action, so let's actually start our journey and this challenge with a blank slate and the arrival at our new base, Eggshell Island. Here we meet Mr. Houston, the chairman, chief engineer and station master of the Trans-Draconic Railway, and much more, and notably the most creative use of a monster reskin in all of Treasures. We have to help him with a few miscellaneous things to get the railroad going, then we can finally explore the semi-open world. And that is yet another tutorial, who would have guessed? Now, which character you choose to control is inconsequential. Eric and Mia are the same exact child and the other one will stay back at base. Obviously, from what we've seen so far, Mia is way cooler, but for this section you have to play as Eric. Either way, our shopping list says to recruit an orc, find some royal soil, and finally pick up a piece of sanguinite. First, the orc. The way you scout enemies in this game is by getting lucky after defeating them, and as long as you make sure it's them that bumped into you and not the other way around, your monster companions will defeat them for you. So that part's easy enough. But sadly it's not all. Imagine how effortless and immediately rewarding scouting an enemy could have been, but instead you have to gather materials to give them to your scouted monsters in order to recruit them for good. Materials like the royal soil that you can pick up off the ground by interacting with it. Fun. People have described treasures as Dragon Quest monsters without breeding, but I'd argue this mechanic is not a new take on Dragon Quest monsters, but instead a copy of a minor mechanic from Dragon Quest Builders 2. In that sense, treasures is more like a builder's game without a mallet. You can also recruit monsters by defeating them, getting lucky and then using an item. You use them to get around and they are AI-controlled companions that help you during combat. And if I put it like that, you might be able to relate to why I'm not a huge fan of something with as little substance being the core of Trevor's gameplay. It's missing the it factor that monsters and builders had in spades. It's missing a fire-breathing crab called Casino to purge the infidels with. You wouldn't believe what an almighty base diet does to a crab. Or less metaphorical, Treasures doesn't leave the player an option to make their own fun. You can have hundreds of randomly generated treasures, but you'll never make a treasure of your own. And in past games, the real treasure, as we know, were the crabs we scouted along the way. But I'm getting off track. For the piece of Sanguinite we need to go through a couple of NPCs, then usually you'd have to use the fortune finder, but I already know where it's located. You also would usually need a monster ability to get up on a hill, but luckily you can walk around from the other side. At this point the game really wants us to fly back, but instead we can try to walk up, realize we don't know where we're going, then give up and retreat to base, which will always be an option from the menu. You lose all your currently held treasure when doing this, but story relevant treasures like the Sanguinite are unaffected. I'll be abusing this mechanic for the next half of the game to cut down on walking, and in case I ever end up lost, meaning I lose all the treasure I pick up, so I won't be going out of my way to find any. If I do stumble across it however, I'll be picking it up because as we know, the real treasure are the experiences we make along the way. 3600 points you get for picking it up to be exact, which cuts back on grinding. So we return, we give everything to Mr. Houston, have to get a banner from the basement or a snarl, so we go down there and learn more about the legendary 7 dragon stones. And this is what the entirety of the game is about. We have to find these 7 stones scattered around a semi-open world, and we can do so in multiple orders. And to help us, there are 3 DLC monsters. Because I got scammed. Quick aside, but when I bought the game, I bought the deluxe edition because the bundle was on sale and I didn't read farther into it than that. But ultimately, this DLC is €5 for a few monsters you can recruit either way and a handful of consumables that I can't use in this playthrough. Don't buy it gets you nothing. But I bought it and I've already demonstrated how I can recruit monsters, so I might as well cut back on some grinding. If you don't like me using the DLC monsters, just pretend I did exactly 1 expedition and picked up a little bit of treasure along the way. But now I have a decision to make. At some point in this playthrough I have to get all 7 dragon stones, 3 of which are available right now, and I'll have to recruit monsters that are strong enough to win later fights without my help. Usually the game expects you to first grind some treasure, because as you earn more of the snarl opens up and you learn about the location of more of the dragon stones, but I don't have time for that. My biggest fail state for this playthrough is that my dementia sets in and I forget where I saved the script. So we get on the now operational train and go off to the wing-swept moors in search of the citrine talon. And while I might remember where exactly it's located on a map, I banned the map, meaning I have to wander around a bit until I find it. In the meantime, you no doubt have noticed that I started playing Dragon Quest 8 music in the background again, and the reason for that is this area's OST. There might not be any other tie between a past game and a given area, but every dragon part that you explore in Treasures uses a past Dragon Quest games or a series of games soundtrack. The Wingswept Moor plays Dragon Quest 8 music. The Payda Noggin, the location where the tutorial took place, uses music from all over the Dragon Quest monsters and Slime Mori spin-off series. It's quite charming. And so is that saber cat. On the way I ended up dying once, and it wasn't so much because I didn't pay attention as it was due to my lack of a dodge button. There's a few attacks throughout the game that are exceptionally hard to avoid without iframes. Luckily you can save at any time, and sometimes the game even saves for you, for example if you rest at a bonfire, meaning as long as I diligently save I'll never lose too much progress when I screw up. On the second attempt I was able to sneak past, and that's the first dragon stone down already. I can return to base since the citrine talent is a story relevant treasure and therefore won't be lost, meaning my vault gets boosted by a whopping 10 million gold, allowing me to skip straight to a rank 4 base. This results in a bunch of back-to-back cutscenes that unlock borderline bloatware. There's a mechanic where you can send out monsters to automatically gather materials for you, or there are daily quests or rival gangs, and none of it matters for the sake of my video and my sanity. The one thing that does matter is that a new level of the Snarl, the basement from earlier, opened up, but I won't get to it right away. First, there's another Dragonstone waiting for us, the Lapis Tail. It's hidden up on a mountaintop in the Hinter Quarters, the Dragon Quest 7 area, and aren't you excited for the Dragon Quest 7 reimagining? I sure am, but I'm also in the unique position to be scared about more Dragon Quest 7 because I've consumed enough of it to last me a lifetime, something I can't say about any other game in the series, even if I spent more time playing those. When I made that story analysis video series for half a year, I spent disgusting amounts of time rewatching segments of my playthrough while coming up with ideas, writing the script and editing. It got to a point where I knew most of the in-game dialogue by heart. Another fear is that I love Dragon Quest 7. The game has really grown on me, but I've come to love it as the esoteric mess that it is. 7 has style in the sense that it deviates from the norm. It deviates from being an immediately gratifying, easy experience and ends up being genuine art. There's a very real chance I'll end up hating the remake if it's a smoothed out version of 7, but there's also a chance that I'll be absolutely in love with it if it's a Dragon Quest 7 flavored game, in the same vein that Fujiwara's Warriors of Eden was a Dragon Quest 7 flavored manga. But it's of course way too early for any of that. And it's not there. The Lapis Tail isn't there. Turns out it's way too early for that as well. And turns out some of the Dragonstones only spawn in once you complete a specific level of the Snarl. So we'll get to this treasure later. For now, it's Snarl time! Every 2 base ranks from now, another level of the Snarl and thus a portal to a gauntlet of multiple back-to-back fights opens up. Whenever you unlock or complete a stage, you get instructions on where to find the next Dragonstone, and some stones, like the Lapis Tail, only spawn after you get the respective instructions from the Snarl. This isn't what I gotta do now, but I have to get it out of the way at some point anyways. The first level's portal has 10 stages that pose little to no problem until my Saber Cat dies, which faces me with a decision. You can revive monsters via the interact button, and it's technically not against the rules I set for myself. There's bound to be an angry person in the YouTube comments though, and we don't want that, now do we? But what else am I to do? Do I let my monsters fight a losing battle all by themselves? Yes, because level 9 has a campfire, meaning as soon as I reach it, I get healed to full and subsequently finish this level of the Snarl without issue. The reward is the location of the Amber Horn, which is eventually mandatory but not what I'm looking for just yet. Level 2 of the Snarl is what unlocks the Lapis Tail, and for that I need a rank 6 base, or in other words 10 million extra gold worth of treasure, and the fastest way to get all that is by going on the 3rd layer of Detour by getting another Dragonstone first, the Amethyst Fang. This one's located on the Payda Noggin and on the first hill you seemingly can't get past without jumping. You can walk around it though, and there's another impassable wall. Or so it seems. You see, this one has what we in the business like to call wonky collision. So you can, as we in the business like to say, get in there and voila. Up here is Bonnie, who's holding on to the Fang and willing to let us fight her forward. Turns out the level gap is the only wall here that's too steep to let me walk over. And since I can't improve my play, the only way to close this gap is by grinding. So this makes detour number 4. I was gonna have to do this at some point anyways, and since this entire playthrough is pretty minimalistic given how all the islands are already accessible, now is as good a time as any. But at the very least, grinding in this game is not exclusively linear. You monsters can be way above your own level, so it's time for our first recruit. Back at the Wingswept Moor, we'll get revenge on the first enemy that killed me. We'll defeat a storming Saber Cat. It's a very involved process. The very first one was scouted successfully, but now, as one does, I have to gather materials to recruit another monster to then unlock a new facility that allows me to use a recipe to convert materials into other materials that I can then use alongside even more materials to recruit the guy that I scouted hours ago. I'm skimming over this, so if you feel like I didn't adequately cover this section, feel free to replicate the experience of watching me cover this in greater detail by pausing the video and staring at this image of a brick wall. Now you might notice that my saber cat has a golden border. It could have instead had a rainbow one and thus higher stats, but I didn't get so lucky and I didn't want to grind forward. The stat difference is negligible, really min-maxy stuff, and a monster with a rainbow border isn't even strictly better than the gold one I got now, since I got pretty good traits on mine. For this playthrough it didn't matter, and honestly I really dislike when games do this. And on the contrary, this is why I love Joker 3 as much as I do. When you scout a monster in that game, give it the traits and skills you want, then you're done. It's always going to have the same stats. Mechanically, that game is super complex and hard to learn, but getting the best possible pieces to play with is super simple. Games like Monsters 3 or Treasures have way less going on during combat, but getting an optimal monster is this impossibly large barrier of entry. Go grab a friend and play some Joker 3, but I digress, back to the Saber Cat. Much more important than the rarity is that it joins at level 37, so 20 levels above the others, was relatively easy to scout and recruit and has really good damage. But by itself it's nowhere near enough to defeat Bonnie, so it's time to introduce a second conscript. Up in the depths of the Hinterquarters there's a hidden valley with a lost leader at the end of it. Lost leaders sadly can't be scouted, but what can be scouted is their rarefied version. The Ultramarine, that's what I'm here for. Some enemies have the potential to be rarefied, and if you keep respawning them by moving away and spinning the camera, you will eventually find one. Thankfully, beating and scouting it is trivial thanks to the Storming Saber Cat. Of course I have to gather materials before it joins me for good. You know the drill, but while I'm going through the motions I'll talk about the 3 reasons I'm choosing an Ultramarine. 1 is that it's generally high statted. 2 is that it can heal, which will be important later on, and 3 I can reach the recipe for the food item required to recruit it. This isn't a given since some recipes and therefore some monsters are locked behind either crouching or a specific fort. And now that I have a new team I can not do a damn thing. Bonnie is still way too strong. The highly complex situation is as follows. Her Gigante's big attack kills everyone. My highly complex solution is as follows. Fight fire with fire, I'm getting a Gigantes of my own. In a normal playthrough you'd attempt to stun her Gigantes out of its attack before it goes through, and you do so via stun pellets. And while my Storming Saber Cat can technically stun, it's nowhere near frequent or reliable enough. So I need someone, preferably someone easy to recruit that can stun him for me, which is where the Gigantes comes in. I mentioned traits earlier, and these big guys have a chance to come with a trait that gives their physical attacks a chance to stun. I also put on medals at this point, a mechanic that's entirely tagged on and has practically no impact on gameplay, but I might as well, if nothing else for good luck, and with that it's time to throw 5 attempts at Bonnie and still lose. I got pretty close, so close that 1 revive would have been enough if I allowed them, but instead I decided to grind a few levels and give everyone viable food items that temporarily increase stats. Another mechanic that's entirely tagged on and has practically no impact on gameplay. And fun fact, food wears off if you load a save file, meaning I have to feed my monsters manually before every attempt, and giving it to your monsters without being able to give them orders while they zoom around at seemingly random is such a pain, and it takes so long, and it wasn't enough. All that turned out to be a huge waste of time. At least I learned something along the way. Feeding is done via the interact button, and so is reviving. Is it really any different? If anything, reviving is less involved cause your monsters aren't running away from you when they're dead. I tried to prolong it for a bit, and I could have beaten this as well as the entire game without revives had I compensated for that by grinding, but this is much more interesting. Getting a revive through is not necessarily possible in all situations because enemies will home in on you as soon as you start the process, but in some cases that's what you're really aiming for. It's the ability to pull aggro for a second, which can easily get you killed without a dodge button to get away, but before it was impossible to take any form of aggro, so basically we went from a 3 to a 4-man party now. All that's left in this kaiju battle between the Gigantes is for mine to hit enough stuns, and as soon as he did, I won and finally brought back the Amethyst Fang. As foreshadowed, this is enough treasure to unlock the new Snarl level, where we breeze through another portal, fight a familiar looking boss at the end of it, and can go back to where we tried to pick up the Lapis tail earlier, except this time it spawns and that makes 3 dragon stones in the vault. And basically nothing else. I didn't bring home any treasure outside the tutorial, so now, since I have to farm a little bit of gold for the next dragonstone and so much more treasure to unlock later Snarl levels, the most efficient thing for me to do is go on an expedition and play the game. The wing-swept moors are the easiest area to traverse, so that's where I run my laps, picking up treasure along the way, killing whatever enemies my monsters turn on, and this is normal gameplay except slower. No forts, no fortune finder, but functionally the same. It's the basic treasures gameplay loop, which is to say not that good. Great stretches of past spin-offs gameplay were all about invoking a specific state of pure greed, a frenzy where you kill every metal enemy in sight, or you end up scouting every enemy, grabbing every slime in your vicinity, or maybe you gather miscellaneous blocks and builders because who knows what you might need them for. And while Treasure's main mechanic is collecting treasures, that's what's in the title, the game seemingly does its best to keep you grounded. I already explained why scouting a new monster feels so unrewarding, but almost nothing you can get in treasures is straightforward. The more treasure you pick up, the harder it gets to keep it, and oh no, your monsters constantly drop it because they're so clumsy and you have to pick it back up, and by the way, picking up treasure takes so long. It makes you want to skip past treasures in a lot of cases, especially bric-a-brac. And if you ever get into a groove and start picking up serious treasure, you'll run out of space and have to go back to base. And for some reason the game has a mechanic where while the gangs will come to steal your treasure if you spend too much time on an expedition, they're really weak, so functionally they don't do anything, but you get these huge announcements in frequent intervals for way too long that rip you right out of the experience.
We're being targeted.
All of that only for them to die immediately on entry. But surprisingly, I found it much more bearable in this playthrough, even though the slower speed only amplifies the problems. Most likely it's because I had this video to work towards and therefore a much better attitude. 2 hauls in I had all the gold I needed, by which I mean the secondary gold, not the treasure vault gold. And what do I need these 777,000 gold for? There's this blinked out white only during the night that sells you the emerald ring for that amount. He sounds like a trustworthy stand-up role model, and he really plays into that by handing the kids some advice before ascending.
One last thing.
He tells them not to get too greedy, which is foreshadowing nothing. If you thought there was gonna be consequences to the kids returning to base and littering it with treasure because their vault can't fit all of it, then you thought wrong. They don't seem to care now, and we know Mia doesn't remember this lesson by the time Dragon Quest XI comes around. And can we talk about that for a second? Dragon Quest XI's Gildigger story was a reference to the Greek legend of King Midas, except Mia, the stand-in for Midas, is not a king but a borderline slave that gains the same ability to turn everything she touches to gold. The bottom line is that Dragon Quest XI sees the characters learning the same message. Greed is kinda bad. What truly made them happy, the greatest treasure these siblings ever had, was each other.
We didn't need money. We didn't need anything. I don't care how poor and cold and hungry we were. I want it back. I don't need this. I don't need gold!
Mia's greed almost ruined everything. And now we as Dragon Quest XI fans are supposed to go and waste so much time gathering treasures. The story ignores all our knowledge of what will happen in 11. It doesn't matter how counterproductive us knowing the characters is, because we're bound to have an emotional reaction to seeing them. You love seeing Eric now, don't you? It's a clash of ideas because the story has these characters and wants to exist, but the game is about gathering treasures that have zero functionality and only serve to increase the big number that keeps going up as you collect more. It's a separate gold value from the gold that you can spend. It's the most superficial thing imaginable. It will later become apparent, and you already saw a glimpse of this with the White. The game is aware and embarrassed of this and tries to backpedal. But don't worry if that was a bit of a downer, because it's my favorite time of the day. It's Snarl time. First, there's a dusty mirror between floors that tells us to return when we're completely stuck, which is foreshadowing. For real this time, we'll get to it. But first is our third portal, and this one has a boss fight at the end. It gets its own cutscene, and it's this game's first fully original monster design to boot. The bosses in this game are usually the most interactive parts, but that makes them problematic for me. Usually you're supposed to lure this boss into crashing against obstacles in the arena, but I can't pull aggro. Usually you could do large amounts of damage by shooting pellets at its weak spots, but all I can do is revive my party members and hope they're strong enough. And for this one they are, but this is a bad omen for what's to come. And that is to say, the next Dragonstone, the Sapphire Eye in mainland. I've been avoiding this area so far, and with just how rough to navigate the layout's looking, the reason should be self-explanatory. But now I can't avoid it any longer and have to go in. And immediately get hit with a literal fetch quest, forcing me to go back and forth between locations. Hey look, there's the important princess again. To get a thing, to get another thing, to get the map of the Ancient One's lair. And it's only after that exhilarating stretch of gameplay that we can start navigating through the mainland. As it turns out, I was scared for nothing. There's a path all the way through. So it's been half an hour since I did anything except slowly walk down a path the game laid out for me. But finally, here's the Ancient One's lair. It's functionally a snarl portal. I easily got through the first 9 stages, and on the 10th we meet with the Ancient One. It gets its own cutscene, and it's this game's first fully original monster design. Again. Hornbull here is a Proud main reskin with 1 extra attack, but somehow it makes for a completely different experience. It now spams a strong charge attack, and you have to lure it into crashing against a pillar, which then stuns it and exposes a weak spot that you can shoot pellets against for massive damage. It ends up getting stunned a lot more than Proud main, but without that weak spot it takes way less damage, especially because it resists my Storming Saber Cat. My monsters get wiped out almost immediately and without significantly lowering its HP, but I do have one advantage. This is a boss in a video game for children. That means it can't really hit me, so I can keep bringing my monsters back to life, they chip in for a bit of damage, die, and then I can continue this unholy cycle. Reviving does take MP, but you passively recover MP, so winning this fight becomes an inevitability. Minus 1 embarrassing death. The boss alternates between the charge attack and one of the 3 attacks that you can all dodge by walking away slowly. And at first I tried avoiding the charge by positioning myself behind a pillar, which usually works, but the hitboxes are a tad janky, so sometimes it hits you while you're hiding, and on the first attempt I not only got hit but also crit and one shot. But on the second attempt I was better prepared. I equipped some medals to increase my max HP above its critical hit damage, and importantly I started waiting for it to charge and then dodged, by which I mean I walked to the side at the last possible moment. It wags its paw across the ground 6 times before charging, so count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ole! If you can count to 6, then you can beat this boss without taking damage. And whenever I did take damage, the Ultramarine could heal me, and with the way friendly monsters in this game behave, if I revived it while being the only party member at low HP, it would almost heal me immediately after, meaning I was never in any real danger. The only threat was that I might have gone senile by counting to 6 for 37 minutes straight, but I can't remember. Honestly, the Hornbull was the first section that felt like a challenge run. And as you know, that's something that all good challenge runs try their best to avoid. So because going forward I don't want to spend significantly more than 37 minutes on a fight, and because I do eventually need to get a lot more treasures, it's time for another grinding interlude. This time I have to go all the way up to 250 million gold in the vault, and the game goes right back to feeling like a normal playthrough. There was that one wall, Bonnie, the Hornbull, but besides that it currently seems like your inputs aren't meaningful, they just slightly expedite how quickly the game goes by, and counting the required jump to get over that wall as a meaningful input is generous. Now it's technically a completely valid choice for a game to value macro over micro decisions, but you're telling me Dragon Quest XI requires jumping and monster riding and Trevor's doesn't? What I'm getting at is this: what's Trevor's main mechanic? What do you play the game for? Monsters are an afterthought. The game doesn't force you or doesn't even encourage you to swap out your party. It even discourages you from experimenting given how important levels are and how annoying new monsters are to recruit. Combat is less than an afterthought. There are no meaningful ways to interact with the semi-open world, the platforming is borderline non-existent, and the ways to interact with other players are super undercooked. Realistically, what do we have left? Well, treasures. We have randomly generated treasure. It spawns and then you pick it up. I know it was originally another Monsters game and changed during development, but I think the concept of a treasures game, a game about collecting randomly generated goodies, is inherently a bad idea. Well, I did hit 250 million gold during this run, so it's time. Snarl time. You can access the final level of the Snarl and fight the penultimate boss. It gets its own cutscene and it's this game's first fully original monster design. Once again. It's Rhyme Blood, so Proudman except it turns invisible. In a regular playthrough you'd have to shoot it for a stun, but monster attacks like my Ultramarine's Merciless Blade or the Storming Sabercat's AoE attacks can stun it out of its invisibility as well, meaning the monsters can entirely complete this fight without my help. Plus, thanks to the grinding and the boss's lack of zap resistance, they did so in only 19 minutes. The reward for completing the Snarl is the Ruby Heart, usually the last Dragonstone, but I've been avoiding the one that's meant to be your first. This playthrough's final Dragonstone, the Amber Horn. It's found on Cinderback Ridge, the fire area. And now that we've seen them all, I gotta say, it's a shame that the game manages to make you forget about the interesting parts of the setting, being on a dragon and all that. Instead, it's a generic fire or ice area and you traverse them all the same via laid out paths. As such, getting through Cinderback Ridge to the cave the Amber Horn is located at is no problem at all. It's guarded by a McMantis though, and while defeating it would be easy, the story doesn't let us. We suffer a forced loss, then get sent on a quest to make stun pellets, which is usually a part that I really like because it clues you in on, in my opinion, the most interesting tool you have in this game. Stun pellets allow you to cheese fights, and this is meant to be one of them, since you're meant to first stun the McMantis and then pinch the Amber Horn to avoid whittling down his massive HP pool. Problem is, with our restrictions we can't shoot pellets, we can't pinch anything, and we can't even get any stun pellets to begin with. To get stun pellets we have to make them, and to make them we need to recruit the Gigantes called Axel that can make them for us. Sadly, to recruit Axel we have to do a quest that requires us to get a cinder block, a key item that can only be acquired by crouching down some hole. I really looked, but I'm 99% sure there's no other way to get a cinder block or to get stun pellets directly. I have to crouch here, only once because I can retreat out of that hole, but I do have to press down the left stick once. This is where the challenge ends, but not the experiment. We can still try and see just how many actions are needed during a playthrough. And that starts right after we've recruited Axel, opened a new facility and made stun pellets by visiting the McMantis for a rematch. This time we can simply kill it, there's no need to shoot pellets or pinch. It drops the Amber Horn, the last Dragonstone, and with a total of 0 difficulties we return to base and celebrate our achievement. But while the animal companions are preparing everything, there's a short melancholic moment. We'll never again experience the innocent joy we used to experience before seeing Moxworth die. Can we really hope for a happy ending before he is avenged? At least for a moment, we can forget. Never mind, Silverbones' crew is here to rob us. He has us fighting the guy. The one that had the smash intro, you know the one. The guy. We beat him, but in the meantime Silverbones stole the Dragonstones right out from under Eric's underqualified nose. And that's good enough of an excuse to go settle our blood feud. He does have a flying ship though and we don't, so with no other way forward we turn towards the magic mirror in the basement and oh my god, it's Eric and Mia from the future and they have a cryptic message and I can't do this. None of this means anything, it's not esoteric, it's a big fat nothing burger. It's supposed to be reminiscent of better stories that involve time travel and invoke the same feelings, make you go, ain't that something, this story has time travel in it and smart stories have time travel in them, so this must be a smart story. It can't stand on its own and I can't stand it either. And also it accomplished nothing, we just end up borrowing someone's flying ship. We go fly to where Silverbones is. Luckily the kids can use the fortune finder during a cutscene to track the silver in his bones, allowing them to follow him to the island he's on, but not before he combines the Dragonstones into the Dragonstones but combined. Now this is the final boss, and you might think it's a bit anticlimactic for the game to end with a fight against a guy, not some devil but just a guy that we haven't seen since the intro, but the hatred and deeply personal motivation to defeat him a player is going to feel towards this guy after he was responsible for the death of our closest friend Moxworth. It's more than enough to make this one of the best final bosses and overall moments in video game history ever. Now the fight against him is a bit convoluted. There's a first phase where it's just him, then he possesses a statue and becomes Proudmane. After you beat that one, he goes and turns into Bullhorn and then Wineblood before turning back into himself. So long story short, you fight one new boss, then refight 3 bosses you already know and then fight the new boss again. It's a very involved process. He does have one difficult to avoid attack where I wish I could dodge called Reaper's Wrath. And while it's not impossible to avoid, I couldn't get the precise angle at which you have to run into him reliably. Usually there'd be situations where your entire party is dead and you can't get a window to revive anyone, but Eric joins you for this fight, and while squishy he will revive himself after a bit. This means if all else fails, you'll simply have to wait for Eric to get back up, pull aggro, and you'll get a free chance to revive someone. And while usually you'd have to pinch the Dragonstones from him while he charges a certain attack, we obviously won't do that. We won't do anything, and even without stealing the Dragonstones, you can very slowly whittle down his HP without. I just need to actually do it now, but I'm proud to say the game can be beaten with only one crouch outside the tutorial and no other actions. You've caught on by now. Whenever I have to spend 40 minutes on the most boring nonsense, I take a moment to ramble while showing you some footage instead of describing exactly how I strolled around the arena while my monsters took care of silver bones. This time I have a few points to make. Treasures lack something essential that all other Dragon Quest spin-offs have. Contributions. It doesn't have any new monster designs besides 2 bosses and a few reskins. And while I think reusing music is in no way lesser than using original music, that goes for individual sections. I don't think any section in a vacuum is lesser for reusing a certain game's OST, but the game as a whole? There are 0 original songs in this game. It uses a few obscure themes, Slimory Mory and Dragon Quest X exclusives, but none that are original to Treasures. The story is heavily inspired by Treasure Island, the novel by Robert Louis Stevenson, which is again not inherently bad, but Treasures ends up being a watered down version. Given that Dragon Quest XI needs to happen, Eric and Mia can't learn a lesson about greed, and the writers didn't have the guts to lean into that character flaw. There aren't any fleshed out characters besides Eric and Mia, and those are strictly less explored versions of the Dragon Quest XI selves. Dragon Quest Treasures is the biggest dip in artistic quality the series has ever experienced. It's a sign in a studio that tells you to applaud, and that makes you do it, but it doesn't deserve your applause. It's the things around it, it's the rest of the Dragon Quest games that do. I've heard a few times now that Treasures is like Caravan Hearts, this cluster of interesting ideas, a diamond in the rough that just needed a bit more polish, and I think that couldn't be farther from the truth. All that culminates in a thesis. Dragon Quest Treasures is kitsch. But to fully understand what I mean by that, we have to first, say it with me, learn a little about literary theory. The terms kitsch and camp are often used, even interchangeably, but they are very rarely defined. Kitsch is art that overuses superficial and worn-out methods to invoke pre-programmed feelings. A backstory about a poor kid caring for its sick relative and stealing bread, but it gets scolded because stealing is wrong, is kitsch because it has already been done 1,000 times and each time the perceived intended emotion was the same. Camp on the other hand is art that proposes itself seriously but that cannot be taken altogether seriously because it is too much. Shout out to Susan Sontag. Camp is when Dr. Snap goes through 5 stages of metamorphosis and becomes Snapped Almighty. Camp is when you fight against Giant Melroth with your spaceship at the end of Builders 2. Camp is Don Corleone, the evil mobster Platypunk. Camp is a lot of things, and among them are what you'd call hype over moments. And camp might be defined by its failure, but that doesn't make it bad. It's a spectacular failure which is far more valuable than what kitsch represents. Perseveration, not trying in the first place. Kitsch is parasitic, cowardly and anti-art. And sure, people enjoy kitsch, but people also enjoy talking to their AI girlfriends, so that's no measure of anything. which is fitting because kitsch is what you get when you ask AI to write you a story that makes you feel a certain way. What people usually mean is that they enjoy camp, they just don't know the semantic difference or they're using a different definition. Because art critique as its own art form is not solvable and there are different opinions on matters, but also I'm telling you to trust my opinion on what these words mean because in my opinion, I have the best opinions. Now Dragon Quest tends to be very campy, that's why I find the story of 9 so charming. And if you ever take a deeper look at the main story of each Dragon Quest game, you'll be amazed by how little kitsch there actually is. Even if games have the same vibe, they still use unique methods to get there. Most instances of kitsch are bad localization attempts like Pepperoni Pizza Town or Doors Closed Now Open, but even when there's kitsch in the intro of The Dark Prince, that kitsch is embedded in a plot with campy as well as genuinely artistic elements. The fake choices that force you to shift your point of identification are an absolute gem, for example, and this means a game like Monsters 3 totals out to be alright. And this is where we circle back to Treasures. Treasures is good enough in terms of its craftsmanship. It's well-made shit. You can see how the problem is not one of craftsmanship. It's not bad because it's failing at what it's trying to be. The problem is that it's afraid of being too much, so it doesn't dare to try and be anything worthwhile. It's unsalvageable. There are no easy changes that would fix it, only ones to make it go down even easier, only to make it even more digestible. It's only children's media because the most childlike perspective is the only one that might make this tolerable, which isn't a standard for children's media. It's not casual friendly to write a bad story, it doesn't make the game simpler and more relaxing to not include original ideas. You'd have to have literally never read anything before, this would have to be the very first time you experience any media for it to not be below your standard. Treasures is a game that plays out before your eyes. A game you watch happen to you, even the emotional reactions you have to the story have already been trued. That's its biggest flaw. Not that it takes too long to pick up treasure, that it's annoying to recruit scouted monsters or all those other inconveniences that make it harder to swallow. It's that you're swallowing junk. Art consumption is always an active process. When you want something that you can enjoy without engaging with it, if you want something to overwhelm, then what you want isn't art, it's an easy to consume art replacement. And there goes Silverbones. I was able to talk about Treasures for so long, but it's not the game that's so interesting. It's the discrepancy that while Dragon Quest usually is, this game isn't. But I do want to leave you with a few more words on critique as a whole, because the average internet goer seems to need all the advice they can get. Those were some harsh words about Treasures. I verbalized how I felt while playing and thinking about it, but what that wasn't was an emotional outburst or my attempt at finding fault with the game according to some list of possible sins a game can commit or some other formula. Criticism should be its own art form, and there's a difference between being critical and being miserable. Literary critique is not there to ruin experiences, it's there for the people that wonder why something didn't click with them, and a tool that helps them find a way of expressing their aversion. I can't stress this enough. Even if something is awful, terrible, you can find your own meaning in experiencing that. Just because media is bad doesn't mean your mood has to be. Critiquing something is not the same as being miserable while consuming media. Even if I don't like Treasures, there were plenty of moments where I had to laugh, and those might not have been intended by the game, and those might not have been due to the game's merits, but that doesn't matter. Media doesn't enjoy itself for you, no matter how good. That decision is up to you. It's just that good media makes it a lot easier. The goal of this video isn't to crap on Treasures. It's to be enjoyable, highlight what made other Dragon Quest spin-offs so amazing, get you to play Joker 3, and to maybe teach you a little about literary theory. I'd rather see you all enjoy Treasures, don't let me worsen your opinion on it. Bad taste is not a problem to be fixed. If nothing else in your life changed, you'd be a slightly happier person if you now enjoyed eating pasta with ketchup. Others might think it's bad taste, but the ability to enjoy that is a net positive in your life. Now if you only ate pasta with ketchup, you'd get sick. It's bad if you only consume substanceless media, but you already know that. What Treasures initially signaled for the series was a bit scary. stagnation and resignation, but now we've gotten the 1 and 2 remakes and they've added Grabbits. We got to play the Smash Bros beta, which is the best mobile game experience I've ever had, which might be because the beta wasn't yet monetized, but either way the future is looking bright now. Nothing before or since was nearly as bad artistically as was Treasure's, but the only thing left now is the ending. From a fan's perspective, the story didn't necessarily make sense for Arrogant Mia's backstory. It can't easily be explained away either, and while you could argue the game is just something they dreamt up, that in itself is completely worn out. Be honest, you've heard it's just a dream theory for a million other games before, and it doesn't make this any better for the Dragon Quest XI fans. And there's only one way a game like this could end, with the words, "The real treasure were the friends we made along the way." A phrase so overused that using it jokingly has been played out for decades. You can't make this shit up, because it already exists. There's not a single original bone in this body of text, and if that's not kitsch, then I don't know what is. It sure is terrible, but at the end of the day, there's no higher being we have to appeal to when judging media. In a vacuum, none of this matters. Art only exists through our interactions with it, so what matters is not some objective standards, but it's whether you can individually enjoy your time. What matters are the experiences we made along the way.